On this week's episode of the RAG podcast, I was joined by Simon Mortimer. Simon is the co-CEO and co-founder of a talent consultancy called Talent Point. These guys are like a blend between a traditional agency and an in-house team with a suite of innovative products that allow their clients to really feel the benefits of the relationship as well as the depth and breadth that agencies can bring. Simon is a really interesting guy. He started off as a trainee with the business 14 years ago when they had a different name called First Point. He had a tough time before, had lost his way and got into sales, and he says recruitment changed his life, which was an interesting point. But interestingly enough, Simon has built a business that has been built on his own performance as a recruiter and how embedded he became in his client base, and built a business that replicated that tenfold. So they're now 59 staff, headquartered in London, with 13 million turnover last year, and they are growing exponentially. He has recently executed a management buyout with his partner James to take over from the original founder Tom. So they've now got co-ownership, majority share of the business, and he's been very honest and open about the fact that he's not a people manager. He's a sales guy. He's always a sales guy. He's always been a sales guy. And he's worked his way up from being an employee to being the CEO and co-CEO. So if any of you are in recruitment agencies now and are thinking, do you know what? I could start an agency, but I could also stay in the company I'm with and think about, I don't know, having a management buyout or being an equity partner, then this is an episode to listen to. Also, if you've already stayed in that company and decided not to, then this is definitely an episode to listen to. So you can be a recruitment owner and without being the original founder. I hope you enjoyed the episode. It was about an hour and 10 minutes. I enjoyed it. It was great fun. He's a super guy. So without further ado, Simon, welcome to the RAG podcast.
Good to be here.
It's great to have you in.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Not a problem, mate. Not a problem. Well, as you know, I've already done you a little intro there, mate. But I'm knowing you, I'm definitely not going to do it justice. So, can you start the episode by giving the guests a little intro to who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, I am Simon Mortimer. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Talent Point, who we are a sort of talent consultancy. What I like to think of a sort of a new breed of, whether you call it an agency or not is up to you. But basically what we're trying to do is create more of an embedded culture, working closely with the customers and just making sure that we're on their side. And we sort of work with tech-driven businesses, not to be distinguished against just a tech recruiter. So we're looking really for tech-driven businesses who obviously ultimately will be sort of more technology-driven.
Across the board for them.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll be looking at customer success, sales, marketing, tech, that sort of area.
Yeah.
But we've come from a tech background, so that's sort of always been our core. Mm-hmm. So if you're a haulage company and you want 50 drivers, probably not the best person to speak to. No.
Wicked. All right. Well, look, I'm sure we'll go into way more about the business in the rest of the episode. So going back to, so it's quite an interesting brand, and you weren't the original founder, were you?
I was of Talent Point.
Right.
But the company used to be called First Point, and it was a contingency agency which I joined 14 years ago.
Right. So let's go further back.
Yeah.
All right. So how long have you been in recruitment?
14 years.
14 years.
Yeah,
so they were your first business?
Yeah. I've come in as trainee to co-CEO.
Wow. So 14 years ago, what were you up to before?
Insurance sales.
Right.
Yeah.
And how the hell did you get into recruitment?
So basically, in 2001, my best friend James Shelley, who is my business partner.
Yeah, I met James.
Yeah, co-CEO. He was working in recruitment. Right. Like many people, I'm sure you've had in the show, was part of the S3 group, and he was working with a chap called Tom Fahey.
Right.
And they started a recruitment company called First Point. In 2001. Right. I was best mates with James,
yeah.
And I've got to know Tom through him.
Sure.
And basically, they'd had the business going for 4 or 5 years.
And you were just a random insurance salesman?
Yeah, sounds awful, doesn't it? I was in sort of a car insurance with 7 brands, etc. Massive sales for 129 people, banging the phones. So obviously good training for the recruitment world. And sort of James was doing quite well. And my philosophy was quite simple. I was like, well, if James can do it, I can do it.
So did you grow up with James?
Yeah, I met him working on the tills at Waitrose when we were 16.
Really?
Yeah, been best mates ever since.
You also were mates with one of my other guests recently, Elliot Dell, right?
I am indeed, yeah. I know Elliot well, yeah.
But that's more of a personal friendship.
Yeah, used to work, hang around with Elliot in Kingston.
So school days?
Well, 17 is probably when I met him. We used to hang around in sort of Volts nightclub and Kingston and stuff. And then ended up going out to Faliraki with him for a bit.
Right. He did mention, he said the word spending time in Greece on the podcast, but I don't think he told us anything about it.
Yeah.
Can you share any of that story?
I'm not sure. I don't want to get Elliot in trouble with his wife. I think he's a very different man these days. We had a lot of fun. We sort of PR'd him. Elliot was there a lot longer than me. But
so what, you were like working in bars and stuff?
PRing, getting the girls in.
Wow.
And the guys.
So I went to my first holiday when I was 17. So growing up, I always tell this story actually when I was told it at the Bullhorn Engage conference. So when I try and explain how I think recruitment's changing, an easy industry to everyone can associate it to is the travel industry. Yeah. So I always say, like, when I was 17, back in Manchester, me and about 20 of my mates, there was 11 of us. The year later was 22, but that year was 11. I was the youngest one out of all of us, right? So my birthday was August the 5th.
Right.
So 2003, August the 5th, was the first day we could all go away. With a letter from our parents, 17, you could go away. Yeah. So we all got letters. Everyone, we booked it in, I think, the September, the first day of college. Yeah. And we went away on my birthday because I was the last one. But the way we did it was we went onto the high street in Manchester and we went to Thomas Cook, and we had to sit there with a woman called Brenda who went through like 2 magazines and showed us like 3 hotels, and we had to choose there and then where we were staying. Yeah. And we went to Malia, and I remember going there thinking like, this is the best place on earth at that age. Yeah. Like I wanted to just live there. It was just but it was carnage. And I imagine Faliraki was the one before Malia, wasn't it? It was like the original carnage.
Yeah, I mean, it was very different from what it is today. It was just literally a strip of bars and a strip of nightclubs. Yeah. But I remember back in the day, he's quite well known, if you don't know, for Shipwrecked, when he was on Shipwrecked.
Was he on Shipwrecked?
He was on Shipwrecked and he was being sort of filmed out there.
Do you know what? I actually think I remember that.
Yeah, he was basically one of the sort of main characters, shall we say, on the first season, I believe. Really? That was it. But we had a lot of fun out there. Yeah. I think we've probably both grown up quite a lot since then. But Elliot's always been a massive character.
So you go straight from that into insurance?
No, I went to I was at university then, doing sports science. Finished university and then basically got a job in sort of working for Compaq HP, selling sort of IT systems. Did that for a couple of years. Being completely honest, missed university and partying so much, lost my way a little bit.
Because you said recruitment changed your life to me.
It has very much so, yeah. It's given me a bit of a purpose. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I think I was born to do it. Yeah. I've always enjoyed it. I've always found it a really positive experience.
What was going on before that then that made you... How did recruitment change your life?
I think, what it was, I finished university. I just absolutely adored being at university, living on a campus with all my friends, etc. Yeah. Exactly. And probably partied a bit too much. Same. And then when I came out and tried to get into the real world of work, it was just such a shock to me. So ultimately, I sort of did it for a bit, but I was really struggling. I was probably, partying too much and having too much fun, and ended up getting myself, in a bit of a world of hurt, to be perfectly honest with you. And sort of career sort of faltered, etc. Mum and dad very upset.
Is this early 20s?
Yeah, this is around about 22, 23. Yeah. Had a 2 years, 23, 25, really sort of struggling. And then that's when got myself together, got into insurance, and actually sort of got that base of sales and, started to grow up basically. And that was fine. It was good. It was enjoyable. I really enjoyed the sort of the camaraderie. It's a massive sales floor. It was really good.
It's quite a good place to learn, isn't it? Like a
very
contact
good.
centre.
Yeah, a company called Allen & Allen. It was really, really good. Sort of 7 different brands. Yeah. So I had absolutely great fun doing that. But James was still my best mate, earning more money than me. I sort of, so when he was sort of doing quite well at First Point.
And he was working for them as well. He wasn't.
Yeah, he'd actually founded the company. So he's obviously the co-founder now of this company as well. But he founded First Point, did a few years, and then sold the business to his half to Tom for a minimal amount, because he had a girlfriend at the time who went back to South Africa, and James was pretty miserable. So he went over there for 2 years. It was worth it. Luckily, she's now his wife. Wow. Well, hi, Lisa, if you listen. Yeah. We've got two beautiful kids. But he basically went, and when he came back, got back in, started billing again for First Point, but not as an owner. And Tom basically said to him, look, you need to go and build a team. So he went to Tom and said, I'm going to employ Simon. He's doing really well in sales. At which
Were you
point,
the first guy then? After?
No, they had. They'd already got to probably around about 10 people.
Okay.
But yeah, so James went to Tom and said, what about Simon? He's doing really well. And Tom went, are you joking? He's mad.
Did he know you as well? I
was good friends with Tom, but he thought I was, he sort of knew I'd had a few challenges, should we say, and he thought I hadn't settled down. But James said, no. He's sorted his life out, and I've seen sales figures. He's definitely not making it up this time, you know. So we sort of so they employed me, and ultimately
what year? So
this is 2006.
2006.
Yep. So and then in my first year became a top biller.
Wow. What was it like as a business going into it? It wasn't like it is now. It wasn't even the same type of company, was it?
No, very. So
traditional recruitment.
First Point's sort of USP was the fact that they had hired technologists. So they're a technology recruitment agency, but they'd hired software developers, systems administrators, so they could really get the credibility. Great idea, great concept.
Turn them into consultants?
Sorry?
What did they do?
Turn them into consultants. Well, it was in 2001, so there was a downturn, you see.
Yeah.
So obviously people in tech couldn't get jobs, so they were looking for other things. The challenge they found very quickly, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, is they can't sell.
Yeah, they
couldn't win the business.
Salespeople.
No, and they couldn't win the business. So whilst it was great, ultimately they went to the biggest technophobe. To give you an idea, I couldn't even type or find the I on a keyboard the day I started at First Point.
Wow.
That's how bad I was.
Did you not need that at the insurance
No,
company?
it was all click, drag and drop on the mouse.
Really?
And verbal.
Well, I remember going back to going to uni. I was at college and I didn't have a computer at home. We never had one. So not that we couldn't necessarily afford it. It was just, I don't know, I just didn't want one. But they were expensive back then. And I remember going to college and I was the only student who completed my whole coursework, I think, without a single computer. Like, I did it all handwritten,
right?
Because I was just too slow.
Yeah.
So I got 100% in psychology in my A levels, and they were like, "You're the only one who submitted a hand." Luckily, my handwriting was quite neat. Yeah. But then I went to uni. Yeah. And I remember sitting there doing the first assignment, and it took me like 2 days just to fucking write one page. Because I couldn't. Thinking of what to write was hard enough, but then having to think of how to write. Mate, I'm all right now. I got over it 20 years later.
Recruitment's good for that. It pushes you in so many different areas.
So you're going in like tapping a keyboard and going,
yeah,
what's this all about?
I was getting actually quite angry in my first week because I couldn't find. I remember it was the I. I couldn't find the I on the keyboard. Ironically, I then went on to actually try, because I was so nervous about the fact that I was a technophobe, whatever you want to call it. I literally pushed myself to learn all about my market, sort of learn to code in the language at a basic level.
What roles were you billing and filling?
Microsoft software development.net. That was my market. Yeah.
London or UK wide?
Predominantly, but we did dual desk contract and perm. Yeah. And it was all over the country, but pretty much southeast really.
Do you remember what you billed that year?
I remember what I earned. I don't remember what I billed. Probably 300 or so.
It's not bad, is it? In year one?
Yeah, 350, I'd imagine, in that year. I remember
Awesome.
working 7 days a week to get going. But I loved it, It was probably one of the hardest years of my life, I won't lie, in terms of work. It was tough, but very, very rewarding. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I hadn't done it,
So you've joined a software business, a development or tech recruitment company.
Yeah.
Called First Point.
Yeah.
How did things progress?
So I did the first year, became the top biller, etc. The business started to scale. And ultimately what happened was I started to work quite closely with a few customers. So one being ASOS.com, another being Fourth Hospitality, so we still work with today. And what I did was work with less customers. I made myself a nuisance. I was on site, in the pub on Fridays. Most people, I remember...
I can really imagine you doing that.
Yeah, I was very irritated. No, I wasn't really. But ultimately, I was on site there a lot, and I was working really close with it. And you've got to remember, this is ASOS when it was turning over £28 million to the multiple billions it does today. A very, very different place. I was sitting there with the CEO, the founder, who, if I went near him now, I'd probably be wrestled to the ground. So, it's an amazing time. But I worked with less customers. I remember at ASOS, it was so much fun, but they were fantastic to me. I didn't pretend I knew all about tech. They were teaching me to code. They taught me all about their different systems, their warehouse management system. They taught me all about e-commerce, but they loved my energy for learning about their business. So when I was selling to an applicant, they couldn't understand how I knew everything about the business, everything about the tech, and everything about the people and the culture. Ultimately we started doing that, and that started to actually mean that I didn't have to do much business development. So I was spending a lot of time on resourcing. It was going really well, but we had a split fee policy back then. So if I did a .NET placement, I'd get 100% of the billing. if I did a project management, product management, QA, whatever it be, I would go to one of my colleagues and we'd split the fee.
Even if they'd fill the job and you'd.
They'd resource it, they'd pass the CV to me,
Yeah.
I'd manage it, close it, deal with the client. But they knew that I'd manage my customer because of the relationship and the trust. So they knew that, they'd get the placement if they found the person. So what was actually happening in our business was the problem was people were taking the safe bet and doing a 50% deal with me rather than going out and doing their own business development. So that actually stagnated the business a bit. So I was doing this, it was great for me. I was billing higher and higher and higher. But ultimately for Tom that owned the whole business then, it was quite challenging for him because he could see what was happening and he was paying me the highest commission. So ultimately, this went on for years. I had a lot of fun, really enjoyed it. But ultimately, he realised that he needed me as more of a sales director to try and win the business for everyone and pass them out. Mm. We also looked at the model that we were doing and saying, well, why has Simon had so much success? Because he works with less customers, he's on site, he builds trust, he builds a relationship, he knows all about the business.
It's funny though, how long was the window between you starting to do well and them actually cottoning on to you were doing something different?
That's a really good question. I've never been asked that. I would probably say, as in Tom.
Anyone, but Tom might be the last one sometimes.
Probably after the first year, they obviously couldn't ignore the billing.
Yeah, but they still don't. Sometimes people just think you're lucky. Like at the beginning.
Well, there was a lot of that. I got used to get told I was lucky a lot by the other team. But no, I think that Tom was a very bright chap, and he basically realised what I was doing. He was like, "How can I write a piece of training?" He's a writer. He's a great writer. How can I write a piece of training that mirrors what Simon did? So we wrote this piece of training called Business Technology People, and that is still the core base of our business today. And
the Simon Mortimer way.
Tom Fahey as well.
You had your face in the corner, I reckon.
I've got to give James and Tom credit here as well. It wasn't just me, but I think they watched the success.
I remember I had a similar situation. I remember landing in London in 2012 in the Olympics. So the night where Jessica Ennis and Mo Farah won that race. August 4th, 2012. And then I started the job a month later. And I reckon I didn't do a lot of billings. I did one deal before Christmas. Yeah. But I was on the phone all the time and I was telling everyone about the fact I've just come back from Australia. I'm from Manchester. I live with my best mate. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I moved to Clapham and I just shared everything about me. Yeah. And first 6 months, everyone was like, just took the piss out of me. Every time I went to the pub, it was like, here he is, Aussie in his flip-flops and all this crap. Then when I started doing well, so I started billing fast and I was top biller that first full year. Yeah. Then they were like, they just assumed I was given like a nice handout from my boss when really she did give me some, there was no denying she helped me, but I took the fucking lead on it. But then it was about 24 months in when people started coming up to me and go, can I just have 5 minutes? Yeah. Can I just have 5 minutes? And I was like, everything you've took the piss out of me for in the last year is why I'm doing well. Yeah. And I put it down to the fact that I used to talk about myself so much that clients and candidates used to tell me about them. Yeah. More than the transactional nature of a traditional, I'm going to ask you 100 questions about a job. You tell me all the answers. Yeah. I also want to know your boss's name, I want to know your inside leg measurement.
Oh, everything.
But I ain't going to tell you shit about me. Yeah. Because I went the other way. I'll tell you everything about me. Yeah. And I hope you give me 50% of what I need and I'll do well enough.
100%.
And that was my way. But people don't think like that. No. But it took them about 2 years. So you got there quicker than me.
Tom actually asked me, I remember after about 3 years, and he said to me, do you take these people out, get them really drunk, get them to do something stupid, hold it against them and then get them, to do what you want? Because he couldn't work out how I could get all my customers.
Have you done that before?
No.
That sounds...
it's good. I've got a few customers, let's just say a little bit merry. Yeah, it's good. But no, ultimately, I think there's a lot to be said, for going out socially with people, not talking about work, and actually finding out. I used to love finding out. I've always loved finding about people. Yes, don't get me wrong, quite like talking about myself as well, but I've always enjoyed finding out about other people and what makes them tick. And I think it was coupled with the sort of training that we did. I think it was a real eye opener to the business as to how we could start to sort of
land and expand, basically.
Yeah, ultimately. But that was all first point up until 6 years ago, which is when I started to get a bit twitchy.
So around 2013, yeah?
Yeah, and that's basically when we'd had this business technology people training and the sort of ethos how we worked. But I was looking at the market and I hadn't started my own business and I wasn't actually a shareholder in First Point, so I owned it all. And I was like, I was like a lot of people, do I start my own business? I've got quite a safe job here. I'm earning good money. What do I do? But ultimately I thought to myself, so Tom and I sat down and we were sort of talking about where's this market going? What's happening here? And how do we scale this out? This model.
How big was it at that point?
It never got that big first point. It was probably a maximum of about 25 people, I'd say, something like that.
And
20.
James and you were two of the top dogs in there.
Yeah, James sort of. Tom was a sort of MD. James was sort of a biller and kind of managed the team. I was kind of the sort of moving into what you call a sales director role there, business development director, call it what you will. But that's where the magic happened, if you want to say, where we sat down and we looked at the market, and I said to myself, I remember my brain thinking to myself, right, I was starting to have conflicts with recruitment agencies. I don't want to, I know a lot of agencies will be listening to this, but for me personally, I got so close to my customers. I had 25 of them at my wedding. So that gives you, they were friends of mine. Yeah. And I used to find it quite difficult eventually because, you know what it's like. You make a certain amount of money.
I didn't have 25 family at my wedding, so you've beat me there.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had quite a bit. My wife's a wedding planner, so we had a big wedding.
We had a big wedding. I just had no family turn up. Oh. That's another story. We'll leave that one for a
we're ultimately sort of looking for where that market was going and how we could do it. So we sat down and we looked at this conflict that I was having. I was thinking, I was working .NET. If I had a fantastic C#, MVC, test-driven development developer, likelihood is I could send it to all of these clients and they'd all want to hire that person. Great, I've got one happy customer, 4 unhappy customers that I've not filled that role for. And they used to ask me, did you place them elsewhere? Well, do I lie? Do I say, yeah, sorry, I did? Makes me look rubbish. So that was a real conflict. Then you've got the whole commission thing. Like the highest basic salary I've ever had was 25k. So it's all commission based. So if you you're made to nudge up that salary by 5k on every role to make more money. If you don't do that, you're not going to be the top biller. So it's a little bit selfish. And eventually I started just to struggle a bit that only because I was so close to them and my friends. Yeah. People say to me, I might go back to Australia in 6 months. Not sure. Do I tell Steve that, my client, or do I not send him? But then the other agency, so I was starting to have all these. So I started to not really enjoy that in the agency world. And I was thinking, what else can we do? And I looked at the internal model and I could see that people were trusted because they worked for the business. They had brand awareness because they worked for the business. They weren't trying to push salaries up because they worked for the business. They weren't on commission. So I saw a lot of benefits to that. And I can see why in San Francisco and the US that's scaled out. However, I was looking at it from a really honest perspective, and I hope you don't mind me being quite frank here.
No, I'll be direct.
But I looked at sort of human resources and people teams, and I was like, well, they don't know how to hire recruiters. They don't know how to train recruiters, embed recruiters, manage recruiters, motivate them. So to get a talent team really successfully delivering to the level of an agency is, well, in my opinion, very, very difficult. And ultimately you lose that bandwidth because you've got people that are specialists in their markets in the agency world. Yeah. You don't have that. So I was like, okay, I can see challenges with the internal functions. If you're Google, fine, you've got the budget, you've got a massive team. But if you're a small private equity backed business that can only have one internal recruiter, I could see these challenges. So I was like, well, there's problems on both sides. And ultimately that is where we took the business technology people and we decided to create something in the middle that created the trust, the embedded on-site kind of model that works closely with their businesses, like I did with the likes of Forth and ASOS, etc. And ultimately, basically had that sort of trust, but you've still got the delivery function back in the office in our research function that's got the specialist markets. You've got your .NET, your Java guys, etc.
So you've got the breadth of the agency, but the kind of relationship of an in-house.
That's it, exactly. And that's basically where Talent Point was formed, which is now realistically officially about 5 years ago.
So you had to start, like, rebrand.
We didn't rebrand. We kept First Point, and we signed a few of my customers as guinea pigs onto the new model. I have to say, looking back, it was a bit embarrassing. It's like any new business. There was a lot of kinks in the armour, processes, etc. But ultimately, it started to work, and it was. And
how were you pricing that relationship up?
We were still doing a contingency-based fee, so we were still doing a sort of 15 to 20% fee at that point. Again, learning curve looking back. That is something that still puts you in that agency bracket. So for someone to see you as the sort of talent consultancy in the middle, that was one of the challenges.
Pricing has to change,
It really faced, and people were like, but you're an agency. We're like, we were really trying to get away from this agency thing. We ended up calling it, I remember Tom came up with hiring communications to be different, and I thought, that's got a nice ring to it. But of course, no one knows what that is. No. So it was really difficult. We got to that point, and it was going really well. Business was scaling reasonably quickly, but it wasn't until about 3 years ago where we, and this is very much down to Tom, we started creating products to back that service. So we had a lot of processes and structures within the team. We restructured the teams. So we had talent, so people that were good at talent, and we can hire technical people again. So we're hiring people that can code in their different languages, certified product owners, whatever, computer science degree people. We could hire those people because they didn't need to sell. Then we had the sort of what we called at the time the account management or talent partner side, which is the person that's the relationship builder on site, learns all about the business, etc. And then we obviously had the account directors who are the people.
So when you started Talent Point from First Point, because I reckon I'd say I'm in a conversation most weeks about someone launching an embedded model now. Like I had a chat today with a client who said they're going to do it. I had a chat yesterday with a client, and I think like people like yourselves and Talentful and Elements, and there's brands that have done it, and I think a lot of agencies are starting to go, well, we need a piece of that.
Absolutely.
But the initial, you said there was kinks in the armor. How did you structure it at the beginning?
So what we did was we started to...
Because you had 25 people in First Point.
Yeah, so we basically started with a couple of the clients. I remember, I think it was Reed Exhibitions, Forth, etc. We started to do that, and ultimately the people that were running those accounts would start to do time on site. Right. So the big change was really, hey, we're here. We sort of had a desk 2 or 3 days a week where they were actually on site with the customer. And it was working. It just showed me though that when people weren't wasting their time doing business development, because I was doing all of that, they could focus on the relationships and learning about the business. So a big part of it was we had to create a setup. So initially we had to create something like a kickoff or a setup where we go in and learn about the business. And for me, it is one of the groundbreaking moments that when you really, like I did, you really understand your customer. Like I said, business, technology, people, when you really understand that, but we started documenting that and we started creating content to actually write that down. 1, so that it was on the job description, but 2, to the customer, and that we knew we were aligned.
Knew you understood.
Exactly. So yeah, we started to do that. But I think in terms of your question was what the kinks in the armor.
Yeah. So no, it was just how did you do it? So you go like, did you take people out of the business and go, right, you're now Talent Point? Was it just you? How do you even go about?
It was a bit of a hybrid, but ultimately we brought a few people and started to put them more on the on-site model because we only had a few customers, and we started doing the testing phase, if you want to call it that. But it very, very quickly took off. Customers preferred it. It was a hard sell originally because we had no customers that we could tell we'd done it. No case studies. It was exclusive. So you've got to drop all your suppliers, all your agencies. No, can't use those anymore. So it was a pretty tough sell. But it started to work really quickly. And because it was customers we'd already worked with, they had that faith, and I was filling 80, 90% of the roles anyway. It was a smaller leap. But very, very quickly, in 1 year, we had already gone to 70% Talent Point and 30% First Point.
Wow. So how did the team structure change in that year?
So everybody started. So we started hiring new people.
Yeah.
The business scaled quite quickly. So I think it dropped down to about 20. So it went up to 25, dropped down to 20 when we moved to Talent Point. Some people didn't want to do Talent Point either. They liked the contingency model, stayed in First Point. So we dropped down to about 20 people. And then, I think realistically, we probably added about 30 or 40% in that first year in terms of new staff. People started cross-training. Tom started writing training. So he's fantastic. His key thing was documentation and training. So he wrote training manuals, created structures and processes. And what I mean by that is, what is a talent manager? What is a talent partner? And what is an account director? What are their responsibilities? So the training for everyone was different. We created career progression in all of those. So we were telling our customers, make sure you build in career progression. We needed to do it ourselves. And one of the great things we found really useful was setting really clear goals for promotion. So one of the nice things we did to really scale the business was let people sort of, in essence, promote themselves. So they had certain goals to hit, and they would come to us and say, hey, I've been promoted, which was a fantastic thing for people to feel that they didn't have to wait for someone to like them or whatever. They knew what they had to achieve, which was hugely motivating. It got the delivery function, the capability to go up.
How did you measure it?
Well, basically on percentage of roles filled. So because you're exclusive, so we have to fill 100%, right? If we're filling 99 and they say, well, what are you going to do about that 1%? Don't know. So we have to be amazing at what we do.
So for your teams to get promoted, they had to do 100% fill rate?
No, they didn't have to do 100%. Well, they would have done 100%, but it was over a period of time. So depending, obviously they lost control of business development. So the number of roles and the types of roles they were given came for the customer. So because of that, we couldn't target them on figures. We also, one thing we learned very quickly was commission was a problem. because of the salary, pushing the salaries up. So a groundbreaking moment was when we decided hire the basic salaries of the people, create a customer satisfaction bonus in terms of deliverables within a project or a period of time, but basically get rid of commission. So they weren't trying to get deals in by the end of the month. They weren't they weren't trying to push up salaries. Customers very, very quickly recognised that, and they really obviously naturally like that. We actually now save about 38%. So we're on average about 7K below top budget that we're given, whereas an agency, I always used to be on it or above it. So we're actually saving money there. But yeah, ultimately we wanted to sort of create a structure and a process that benefited the customer. So yeah, I think it worked really well, and the products that we brought in were the next groundbreaking piece.
So how long did you? How did year one in terms of money generated from that model?
So I remember First Point was always a fairly small business. It was sort of about 2.5 million turnover. Predominantly, it was all perm as well. Perm, yeah. But when we signed Talent Point, we started doing contracts as well. We just signed all of the business. So we started obviously growing on the contract side. We still had sort of dual desks in essence, but so yeah, revenue was 2.5. I can only really remember the recent stats, but I know that we sort of 2000 and where are we? 14 was where we sort of kicked it off, and then I remember 2015 we were like 3.5 million. 2016 we got to 6.8. 2017 we got to, sorry, I've got my years wrong there. Sorry. 16 we did 6.8. 17 we did 10.9, and then we got up to 13 million. So we saw drastic growth from a company that had actually been sort of, it was a lifestyle business for Tom, I think. 2.5 million, nice profit for him.
Nice
Wasn't
life.
Really, exactly. But this changed everything. So obviously we created a business.
Do you think he'd have done that without you being there? Was he thinking of that, or was he quite comfortable in his 2.5?
He wanted to scale the business. I don't know if I wasn't there the way he'd see me work the customers. I don't know if it would have. You'd have to ask him that. To be honest.
Did part of you at the time seriously consider doing it on your own?
Yeah, very much so. I've been very honest with him about that. Yeah, I did.
And what was the decision? What was the defining factor that stopped you from doing that?
Because I think that we I had great customers, and it was starting to work. So I thought we'll give it a go. We'll see if we can do it.
Did he give you shares from that day it became Talent Point?
So we got shares probably, became a director probably around about 2.5 years ago, something like that. But we've obviously just...
Because that's probably something I really... I want this podcast to kind of help people understand, because owning a recruitment company is one way.
Yeah.
But growing within a recruitment company and becoming, like Elliot, CEO of Talent, he didn't start it, but I mean, he's the CEO.
Yeah.
So you can acquire and create wealth and have the benefits of exits and stuff by being part of a business as opposed to starting it. But how, from your experience or how it worked with you guys, was it clear? Was there a structure for equity provision that because that can be, people talk about equity and shares is just bullshit in recruitment. It's smoke and mirrors.
Absolutely.
So what was your experience like, if you can talk about it?
I can. I'll be pretty honest about it. So it was difficult for Tom. So we've actually recently just completed a sort of management buyout, so to speak. Tom's been running this business a long, long time. I think he felt that he'd done it quite a long time. He had other interests. He's a very passionate chef, wants to start a cooking school, wanted to get some money out of the business. It's one thing I've noticed, one of the benefits for people that have come up through the business, if you started that business and you've invested your whole life, that is in essence your pension pot. It's very difficult not to see it as your own money. And Tom would admit it's very, very difficult because he used to struggle with it. If you're investing £100,000, it's almost like coming out of your own bank account. So it was very hard for him. And I think ultimately we had different sort of views on where the business was going. I'm very much a people first person. He's sort of quite data and sort of data structure process. So we're quite different characters, which up until now has worked brilliantly. But I think, ultimately the shares thing was very difficult for him to do. So we did sign shares, although a small proportion. But now obviously we're going to move into a
but did you find that difficult to sacrifice starting a business, grow something with no definite benefit?
I did. I was still getting paid very well. I won't lie. It wasn't until recently where we've obviously cut our money down to reinvest back in the business. Now that we're going to have a bigger stake in the business and be co-CEO, James and myself will be sort of the co-CEO.
Right.
So now it is going to be our business. Tom's going to be a silent partner and a smaller stakeholder. So ultimately, I think that it is going to be our business now. It's going to feel like that. And he's already told me you'll know how I felt all these
Yeah.
years now. So I think it is, people don't really understand.
Is there an element of trust that needs to be there?
100%, yeah. Yeah, you have to have. You have to. I think the two things I'd say, if you're in business with someone, I'd say in recruitment especially, you've got to have the same vision and you've got to trust each other. And I think if you don't have that, it's very difficult. I do see a lot of people that make very bold decisions who build a lot less money than me, and have gone out, and I've looked at their profiles and I don't think they look massively successful, and they've started a recruitment business with someone that they don't know that well, and I'm like, wow. That's brave. I think it's really, it's a bit pot luck. I think it was very difficult for me. One of the things that stopped me starting my own business was the fact that Tom, I had a lot of faith in him. He's an incredibly honest guy. He never paid me a day late, never lied to me. That's worth a lot to me, and I hope that we continue in that vein, in Talent Point as me and James leading the way now. I really want everyone to feel that.
So let's go back a bit then. So the business starts to gather pace. Let's say 2016, 17.
Yeah.
How did the size and the process, how did things start to change? Because a business go from 20 to 50 people is a very different business.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I was listening to one of your other podcasts where someone says, I've got no bloody idea. It's one of those hazy moments. You're working really hard, but ultimately the business has got up to 59 people. So it scaled, it got up to 13 million in turnover. We then started to think, right, this is a business that we can really make profit out of, that we can scale, that we could potentially get an investment in scale internationally. Elliot's done an amazing job at Salt, as someone obviously mentioned earlier, and I think that we've got a unique proposition. So what we ended up from 16, I think what we started, that's when, about mid-16 is when the products came in, and so we started creating data. So we've got market reports, so we help our customers design the role. So in most companies, you're given a role, do your best with it. You might give some advice. They don't do anything, our customers. We design the role. We create a market report. We sit down. We have a campaign planning session, and we actually create that. Followed on for that. So that was the first product we created. It was the big change.
When you say a market report, what do you mean?
So we scrape data. So we'll do salary benchmarking. We'll look at different job titles, career motivations, training opportunities, salary hikes.
But they've still got to say to you, we want another developer.
Yeah, they've got to say, it depends on the business, but mainly, they'll say we want this sort of business. But a lot of our companies will actually, or customers, will actually come to us and say, right, this is our technology budget, this is our roadmap, this is what we think we want to hire, these are the heads we've got, this is the budget, and we'll go and help them actually design. So we're working with Donata, for example, part of the Emirates Group, and we've actually done that with their CTO.
I'd say being on the other side now and growing a marketing agency, we have leaned on we've phoned your major players and the guys at Red Sprout and asked questions, and they've been really good at giving us valuable info because I'd love that in the next couple of years to be able to say to agencies or whoever we're working with and say, look, this is what the business needs to do. Yeah. I don't really care how many heads are in it, but you've got to tell me how and what to based on your experience elsewhere. Tell us what we need, as opposed to me having to come up, because it's another thing to think about. Because I think when I was on the recruitment side, I never really understood it totally, what it was like to be the owner of a tech or marketing business. But now I think the more, when you've got recruitment, when you're not a recruitment business, it's just one element. It's not everything to your business. You've got so many other fucking things you're trying to do. And the more you can get partners to support you across more than just recruitment, it's just so important.
Absolutely.
And we don't have those processes that we should have. And I'm sure all these tech companies half of them don't even have the job spec processes that you had when you rolled it out. No, absolutely not. I think most of the job descriptions we're given, we just rip up and rewrite. It's completely. But I think going back to your point about what changed, I think for us creating the product. So that one, sorry, we didn't even finish the product. The first one was that market report. The first one is market report, so the data side, to help educate our customers on the state of the market now. They tell us what they want to hire ideally, what they think the market offers, what the salary, the job title. We come back with a report either confirming that or tweaking that, so we can help them increase retention. We can help them potentially bring the cost of the role down within a budget. Also, make it a sustainable hire. So lots of tech recruiters will have had this problem. You can find one, but can you find 10? So if you say you're a private equity backed business and you say I want to hire 10, if I don't hire those 10 in 3 months, I can't deliver that project, I can't hit my goals. That's a big problem. So we map that out with the data. Once we know that person exists, so you've all sat down, you're the hiring manager, you know that person exists, right? We've all agreed it's black and white. We've scraped data from job boards, from LinkedIn, from our CRM, all sorts of different areas to present you with that data. Once you know that person, the big difference is we write a campaign brief. That's our second product.
the difference between that, a job spec to me is a document that sort of hoiks everyone into a funnel and then you screen and filter afterwards. What we do is we've already established these people exist, so let's write them a love letter. So when they read a campaign brief, you guys are the expert in content, right? You should read something that jumps off the page. And if it doesn't, that's not the job for you. So we know those people exist. So our second product was the campaign brief. We found that created so much more engagement from the applicants for our customers, because they were speaking to someone that was embedded in the business, that really understood that business. But then when you get what they call it, what they think of as a job description that actually jumps off the page and goes, that's me, that is. We found that massively.
Yeah, a job description typically talks roles, responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
And if you've done the job before, you typically know what they are anyway. Like,
absolutely.
I always got like, I always wondered when like project management CV, like job specs used to say stuff like, this is what we expect, like project deliverables and using like Prince2 methodologies. And I was like, surely that's the stuff they know that's going to be there because they're a qualified PM. It's more about the business, the products, the projects.
And how are you using things. Yeah,
it's the same in recruitment. Have you ever seen a recruiter's CV and it says like, what was your responsibilities? Calling candidates,
KPIs.
Screening candidates, calling clients, opening doors, KPIs. Fuck all about achievement. There's absolutely zero there about what you build. Like if you're sending yourself to a recruitment company and you've been a recruiter, you should write, well, you know what I already do. This is how I did it and how I performed. That's enough. This was the market. This is the conditions. This is what I did.
Exactly. But it's also on these campaign briefs, it's really, really important that one of the big things, again, hiring managers, HR teams don't know how to do this, but you need to extract that information from them. So if someone asks you for a certain skill set, from my world, test-driven development, if I'm reading that job description, I want to know, why do you want that? Are you amazing at that? Do I just need to fit in with a highly skilled team? Do you want me to come in and evangelize that and train the team? Because I might not want to do that. I might want to go into a really strong team. I need to have that context.
And what I charge to do that changes as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're going in and just being one of many or creating the fucking function,
exactly,
I'd charge more for that, right? I'd want a better salary or a better day rate.
Better salary, exactly. Fact. And this is it. And I think that, so once we sort of created this role, I think for us, putting career development at the heart of hiring is something we're really passionate about. So when we do this data, I talked about sustainable hiring, right? And I talked about retention. One of the things we try and build in with our customers, and it works really, really well, is, if you're looking for a software developer and you want to hire that person, a lot of customers are about me. You've got to think in this day, it's so competitive. You've got to think about, what do they want? When are they expecting certain salary increases? Is it after 2 years, after 4 years? What do they want to be in 3 years? Can we offer them that? What training, what skills are they wanting to learn? If you can't offer that, you might be able to hire that person, but they're not going to be in there 6 to 12 months, which is no good to you. So we actually sort of make sure that we can create and build in. So we're helping everybody, the customer and the applicant, achieve the role they actually want to achieve. But that was our second product, which is campaign briefs. Again, every product was sort of a groundbreaking thing. The next one, which was a bit more, the first two were sort of created quite heavily by Tom. For me, what I was saying is we only put 3 applicants forward to an interview, right? Our customers don't generally screen the CVs. They trust us. We book in the interview and they do it. So it saves them a lot of time. They're not doing sort of screening 100 CVs and doing 19 interviews, which is, when it works, fantastic for them. They love it. So I think it's very key. But we were saying, if I came to you and I said to you, how would you feel if you hired one in every 3 at least for an interview? You'd be like, that's amazing. We started giving this to people, and they were hiring, but they were seeing 3 good people, but because by a process of elimination, they'd seen 100 CVs previously and done 19 telephone interviews and 10 face-to-face, it built confidence. They covered the market. So they were like, well, this is great, guys. We like these people, but how did you get to that? So that's when we created our third product, which is sort of our applicant tracking. So we actually give a report on a campaign, which is normally a week. So like an exec search, mini exec search for a week. And we actually give a report, and there'll be like 60, 70 interviews, LinkedIn profile, salaries, and reasons for rejection.
Do they even read it, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually present it to them and talk it through. So they'll look at the people they're interviewing. The great thing, and this was fantastic, I mentioned earlier that I hated the fact that if someone said to me, I might go back to Australia in 6 months, I'm not sure. Or if I thought, you're really good, you're a fantastic engineer, but are you right for ASOS or Forth? It's from a cultural perspective, and it was niggling at me, and your gut feel's normally right. We submit them, but we put them in, because we're exclusive, into a tracking list, and we discuss them with the customer, and we say, hey.
You're honest about it.
We're honest about it, we're transparent. When it was Mark Gaisford, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I loved he was fantastic about. He's obviously clearly massively transparent, and it is something missing in the industry. So this is what I wanted to develop. I didn't want any of my team to have. All of us, James, me, and Tom, we didn't want our teams to feel that conflict that we'd all felt. So yeah, having that tracking list, but being able to submit them and talk about it openly and honestly. Say, hey, this guy Dave's the best engineer, but I've got highly concerns that he might go back to Australia. Then you can say, hey, great. Do you know what? If he's the best, I'll interview him and I'll make the decision. But you've got complete transparency. But they can see the amount of work you've done. And we were able to do a lot more interviews. So I could never have done 60 .NET interviews in a week. Our team can document all that. So you've got every rejection coupled by rejection note, which is fantastic for the customer. Because again, it's constant learning about the market. And if anything doesn't add up with the original market report, we've got a point of reference. So that again built trust with the customer, which I keep going back to trust and transparency. And that was our third product. So it just kept building the service.
All right. So if we think more about like the growth of the business, because that's what the listeners I think are going to be really interested in.
Yeah.
How did your and James' roles and Tom's role evolve over that time?
So in essence, I became sales director.
Yeah. So you stayed away from people management. It was all about.
I won't say I'm the greatest people manager in the world.
That's cool though.
I'll be honest with you on that.
Yeah.
Generally, good salespeople aren't, I think. James always focused more on the sort of delivery and management side. Tom was sort of the guy that was sort of in essence heading up the strategy, and I was heading up the sales, and that worked really, really well. And I think it was.
How did your back office and leadership layers change as you went from 20 to 59?
Yeah, so that's where we created the account director position. So basically we created pods. So you've got an account director and they manage 3 to 4 talent partners or account managers.
Right. And each talent partner has one client?
No, depending on size. So sometimes they have half a customer if it's a big one like Donata Emirates. Sometimes they have lots of multiple ones. And actually we find different personalities fit different styles. Some people want to work with one business and some people want to work with multiple and get that sort of variation.
And your talent partners on site, off site? How does it work?
So normally they do 2 to 3 days a week on site.
Yeah.
They do have to make sure that they project manage the delivery function. So at the end of the day, if they sign off a campaign brief, they say, right, we will send you the report and 3 CVs in a week. They don't wait till Monday morning to check if it's worked. So they need to be working with the talent function to make sure that's happening.
So they don't do a lot of the delivery, they just manage it?
No, they depends. Some of the guys actually do a bit of both. So we've got what we call a resource side account manager, which is where they do a bit of both, and then they're moving it, and then you go to account manager.
That makes sense on a smaller account, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And it also depends on their specialism. So I'm not going to get an account manager that's never worked a .NET role to go and work .NET. But generally speaking, they are very much focused around customer relationships, understanding the business. But the applicants will go through a thorough technical screening with our team. And again, a lot of them can code in their own language. They can really screen them. But those guys they're not on site, they don't know the culture, and they're not salespeople. So they pass it on to the account manager, who then manages it through interview, sells the role, screens them around culture, motivation, and obviously closes that. So I think that started to work really, really well. I think what I love about our business, there's a lot, if I'm being honest. We're not a global business yet, 50 odd people, but I'm very proud of what we do. We all have a lot of fun doing it, but I think it's really, really important that what we can do now is employ people that do what they're good at. And I think one of the other challenges with recruitment agencies is 360 recruitment. You've been there, right? It is tough.
Yeah.
You've got to be good at everything. You've got to be able to resource. You've got to be able to build relationships. You've got to be able to win business. Not everyone can do that. So we've had a lot of success hiring people. So if there's people out there that have actually think they're really good at the relationship side and quite good at delivery, but hate business development, come and join Talent Point. Yeah. Because you get all those benefits. You don't have to worry about.
At the moment, the BD is you and Anthony, isn't it? It's not a big team.
No, it's just me and Anthony. Nancy's only been with us 7 months. Yeah. So I've been doing all of the new business.
And how have you found being a leader, now a big, like a majority shareholder or CEO?
Yeah.
And still in the details. I'm doing that. I'm still in the sales process at Hoxo, and ideally, I've got a 12-month roadmap to be out of that.
Yeah.
Not because I don't enjoy it, but also I don't want it to be about me. I struggle to think that the business will. I think I'll become a bottleneck personally.
Yeah. Well, am I allowed to swear and tell you the truth?
Yeah.
Fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. So
have you found the same thing? Because if you go on holiday, no fucking sales happen. Like,
no, 100%.
It's completely about you. And
Well, Christmas is coming up.
Yeah.
I want to start relaxing.
You can't, mate.
It's such our sales pipeline. Yeah. And when Hoxo Media get going, oh my God. But no, we've got someone in our company who's quite keen on the sort of sales and pitching side. I think will be quite credible.
Yeah.
We've got Anthony focused working with you guys and partners to obviously on the sort of the more inbound lead side, which is something we haven't invested before since I bought into the business since I took over. Yeah. Me and James have really driven forward on the marketing side with working with Anthony. But it's really hard, and you're absolutely right. In essence, we're a bigger business, but you started this business. One of the things, a lot of people think I'm fearless and really confident. Being completely honest with you, it's all bravado. Me and James are nervous as hell, and we're very passionate and confident that we can achieve it. But at the same time, I think we really feel that at the moment it's really tough for me because I do feel a lot of pressure to run the sales, and everybody's got to be busy, which is all on my shoulders. But we also, it's a new era for us, right? As co-CEOs, and we want to really drive people to the forefront of the business. And what I mean by that is putting our staff and our customers before money or whatever, putting people's happiness and delivery first. And I think at the moment it's really tough for James and I because we are trying to do delivery director, sales director, and co-CEO. But we're creating a roadmap, as you've mentioned, or a plan to sort of make sure that we can bring in someone to sort of take over from ours so that we can actually focus.
You've got some succession planning, basically.
Absolutely.
Because now you are co-CEO is a different role.
Yeah, very different.
What would you say you have got, not just you, but to you and James, even Tom involved, what did you get wrong in that growth period that's gone from 20 to 59? Because it's great, but what mistakes did you make that you would...
How long have we got?
Well, we've got about 20 minutes. So, But realistically, what couple of things did you clearly fuck up that if you go back, you'd do differently?
A big one, if I'm being honest, was this is me being really honest, I can procrastinate. And I mentioned being a technophobe at the beginning. I had no choice but to drive myself forward on that level. I've always been a bit. Sales comes really naturally to me. That's been easy for me. But marketing was something that I was always a bit nervous about. I don't like social media. Would you believe?
Yeah.
Guess what? That's had to change. Very quickly. Marketing I've had to learn about, finance I've had to learn about. So what we didn't do is we didn't invest in an Anthony, in a Hoxo, in a new website. So we've got the new brand that we're working with, a company called Manifesto. Just awesome, big plug for them. Amazing company. They've built us a new brand new website which is going live in December, which obviously is where we want to drive all the traffic with you guys. So we didn't do that early enough. This should have been 18 months ago because my shoulders are creaking at the moment. So we're doing a great job on delivery.
Do you think you held on to almost keeping it as lean and as tight as it could be? Almost like head down in delivery because you're both delivering. You're delivering sales, he's delivering delivery.
Absolutely.
Without stepping up. And do you not think, so is that where Tom maybe could have been better then? He could have drove that part a bit better?
I don't want to get on Tom's back. I think that Tom and I do think differently about things, but ultimately, one of the challenges with me, and if anyone ever speaks to Tom about this, I'm very headstrong. I've got my own ideas, really, really difficult. And I think that's one of the reasons I probably should have started my own business because I have my own ideas. So I wasn't the easiest. You talk about an owner-managed business being quite micromanaging and stuff. I was like that about my sales department. I was kind of like, I own it, I'm the man, etc. Looking back, should have let that go. Should have been more flexible. Should have been more open-minded, less procrastination, and diving in headfirst to the marketing side. So we should have done a new website. I think me and Tom are both guilty. It's that is one of the mistakes as a management team with James. I think James has been focused on delivery, so he's been doing a great job. I think ultimately one of the reasons I'm really excited about being his business partner is that if you look at the way the customers feel now about and the level of delivery we're doing, it's better than I could have ever done. I never thought we could do it. So we've done a lot of good stuff there. But I think from a leadership and strategy, marketing, massive mistake. Got to have a good website. Got to have marketing. Got to get your brand out there and sort of be pretty creating good content. I mean, I don't know why I'm preaching to you, because,
but it's not me. We're talking to. It's not me and you. This is about the listeners, right?
So that was a big mistake. We'd have had a much bigger pipeline. So we've been lucky enough that customers have referred us, and I've got a good network. But that's only going to go so far.
100%.
And I think we've just done it early enough, if I'm being honest. Yeah. But it'd have been a lot easier to do that.
Well, the fact is, we can count on probably one hand how many major competitors you've got in that space.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were a pure contingent agency, it's a different world.
This is it. We do sometimes,
do the odd contingent deal.
What's that?
Do you do contingent deals or not?
Yeah, so we've got a small agency called Charlton Howard that if people don't want that Talent Point service, we've got some guys that prefer the 360 role and are very good at it. Some of our top billers actually, Ben and Ryan, have started that. So we do have that option as well.
Do you have First Point anymore?
No, First Point was retired after 2 years because Talent Point was just so much better. It was making more money. The customers were happier. The staff enjoyed it more. It was just a much better model.
Wicked.
So yeah, but yeah, I think marketing, going back to your point, marketing was one thing, and another thing is finance, just not using our money properly. I think I was told time and time again that good FD or whatever is worth its weight in gold. I think turnover was going up and up and up. We were investing. We weren't doing forecasts. We weren't doing budgets. So anyone that is running a recruitment firm, I can tell you now, it has hurt us.
Yeah.
So the turnover's gone up, but the profit, everyone's looked at the business model and said, hey, you should be making more profit. We've now fixed that and we know what we've got to do to do it, but we were wasting money. We weren't using our money in the right areas. And that is marketing and finance.
It's easy to get ahead of yourself when your turnover goes up though. And you see the invoices coming in, like exactly. You get excited, but you need someone who can hold your feet to the fire.
Exactly, yeah. But those for me have been two of the sort of the big areas is finance and marketing.
Well, that leads us on to quite nicely onto what's next. So you talked about you've been through this MBO process, right? Yeah. So you and James now run the show.
Just finishing off, yeah.
Yeah. So what is the future looking like? What do you want to do?
So, as I said to you, we've got this fantastic business in my eyes. We've got our team's great, right? I've got to say, there isn't one person, it sounds ridiculous, there's not one person in my business that I don't like on a personal level. They're a lovely bunch of people. They're really passionate about what we do. And I think that what we've drilled into them is that these products, the market reports, the campaign briefs, the applicant tracking, and the interview training, which I didn't actually get onto, it's our final product, which we've got into. It's very much, we did this thing about product over placement. So get it right, do the right things, and the placement.
Yeah, it will. Of course it will.
Exactly. However, what we lost sight of a little bit was that kind of people first, and that's what you go back to my days at ASOS. Why was I good? I built relationships. I built trust. It was all about people. I put my customers first. Empathy is a huge thing in any recruitment role, as everyone knows. So I think what we want to do is bring back that sort of more empathetic. That's empathetic internally with our teams working together, and empathy towards our customers and their situations and understanding their roles. So I want to bring people, relationships, and trust to the forefront of the business, whilst keeping that level of delivery. And so, because I think one of the things we found, which was really interesting, there's a couple of customers I spoke to, and we'd filled like 70 technology roles in that year with these two customers, and it sounds great. And we were doing 3 interviews per hire. Okay. Retention had come from about 30% down to nearer 16. Fantastic results. And I spoke to the customer, I said, hey, how are you doing? But they didn't feel good about it, because we were making them, all this documentation, we were making them feel like if anything went wrong, it was always their fault, and we always had it tracked. We could always blame them. And they said, if you tell someone 10 times in a row that they're wrong, even if they're wrong 10 times in a row, they don't feel good about it. No. Your customers have got to feel good about your service. So what I really want to drive forward is that people side, that empathy side, how the customer feels, what's the brand all about. I want the future of Talent Point to be the customer feels like we're on their side. We're part of their business. We're a partner. Everyone uses the P word, the partner word. For me, it's thrown around. A true partner will always, it's an equal 50-50 relationship. And I think it's very, very hard to get that in contingency. I think some of the recruiters out there do get a rough reputation, but in actual fact, sometimes it isn't the recruitment agency's fault. So I really want to drive, first thing I want to do is drive that forward from a sort of culture and delivery perspective, the people side. I also we've started to fan out now, it's gone really well, into new markets. What I mean by that is we now take on tech-driven businesses, but we'll do all of the areas. We've actually found moving outside, I think most technology recruiters will understand this, tech is so challenging that if you can deliver in technology, when you start moving into marketing and sales and finance and within those areas, they are easier. There's less competition. There's less different technologies to understand. So we actually found going into those areas and using our methodology worked really, really well. So I really want to drive us into sort of being a sort of, not just seen as this tech recruiter. So I want to start driving into more customers, which is working really, really well.
Again, as well, the industries you just mentioned, the roles you mentioned are slightly more traditional.
Yes.
So they're not evolving at the pace tech roles are. So a salesperson, all right, you might get an inbound salesperson or a SaaS salesperson, but the nature of building pipelines and closing deals and using tech, it's not changed massively.
No.
Whereas a developer 5 years ago and now, and all the technologies that have come through and the methodologies, it's just moving. Yeah.
Quarterly.
Whereas a finance, I reckon your CFO was probably running a very similar P&L 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that ain't changing. It'll tweak with technology, like Futurely comes in or Xero, but the nature is that's why recruiters are in it, because they know that they can keep reinventing themselves. The fees are huge, the salaries are huge. Yeah. It's an amazing. Everyone is in super demand. Yeah. But with that comes challenges. So you can go into a business now and go, right, we'll take care of all your recruitment.
Yeah. We'll take over if you're a tech-driven business. Ideally, our customers are sort of customers that have had investment, know what they want to do, want to scale. I think what we do is give fixed pricing. So if you're a CFO, problem with not having recruitment plans and being helped with that, and you don't know how much you're going to spend, they always go over budget, salaries are increased, extra heads up. We stop that. So I think it's great for us to start moving into those markets. It's working really well. It's been pretty seamless. Just increased our resource function in that area. And the customers, actually, it wasn't an idea of ours, by the way. Our customers came to us and said, we're struggling on sales, we're struggling on marketing.
They'll tell you, won't they? They'll tell you.
So can you do it in those areas? We started trialing it and found it quite easy. Yeah. For us as well, I think the next goal is geographical expansion. So at the moment, our office is in London Bridge in London. We cover sort of the south of England, so over from Bath, Birmingham down. But we're now moving. We started recruiting in sort of Manchester and Leeds. There seem to be the sort of two tech hubs. So obviously, hopefully opening up an office there. Potentially, it's obviously early days, but we're talking about potential in the future of getting investment, maybe to go international. So it's certainly something I'd like to do. I know, and even then, probably a couple once the profit's up, but also whether we eventually start to acquire other businesses. So whether we scale and start our own office, or whether we acquire a smaller recruitment business that we can then retrain in our methodology, we're not quite sure.
There's a lot of opportunity there, though, because there's so many.
There is, exactly. So there is someone I'm actually talking to at the moment. They're only 7 people. They're a really good recruitment agency. Got a great team. They really sort of like our model, and all the guys there would be quite interested in sort of cross training. I say it's only a hypothetical conversation at the moment, but I definitely see us sort of scaling, fairly quickly from about the middle of next year onwards. So yeah, fingers crossed it'll be good. Yeah.
So what's life like for you outside of work?
So it's changed a lot.
Still partying every night?
Sorry?
Still partying every night?
I don't know if my wife's going to listen to this.
Do you know what? I think every guest says that, including me. And to be fair, mine has never listened to it. I promise you that.
My wife will. No, I'm not partying every night. In fact, one of the big drivers in our business is physical and mental health. You see a lot of it on social media at the moment. So we've created sort of mental health pledge, etc. Recruitment historically, I think I watch people in my company and other companies, people join it and get less and less healthy. You're looking at one. Go back to 2011. But it's easy to go 5 stone lighter.
It's easy to hover around pubs, restaurants, cafes, and meet people, right?
Especially when you're in business development. And
yeah,
you're
exactly.
Entertaining clients,
Well, I walked past the Magpie in London, in Liverpool Street today, the one by Dev Square. Yeah. To me, that is like the perfect pub. Yeah. I just love that old English pub with like the Guinness tap at Christmas.
The Mancunian coming out.
Definitely. Yeah. I just love proper pubs. Yeah. But I walked past it and I was like, that was my world in recruitment. I used to do insurance, Lloyd's of London, just by the Gherkin. And December was basically in pubs. Yeah. And I always had a bloated face in December, and I'd try and get rid of it in January. And it's hard. I don't do as much of it anymore.
You were a fitness guy, weren't you? So this bloated face is 24/7 now, but 365.
Do you still entertain clients?
Yeah, so I'm 26 days. I'm 26 days into not drinking.
Really?
So there you go. Big statement.
Are you going to keep it going in December?
Sorry?
You're going to try?
I'm going to have a couple of drinks at Christmas too, but generally I want to cut it out, get back to a healthy weight, etc. So I want to sort of lead from the front. I think it's really important. I can't stand in front of the company talking about sort of physical and mental health.
Where do you live again?
I live in Cheam in Surrey.
Right. How long's the travel to the office?
35 minutes on the train into London Bridge.
Is there any gyms and personal trainers on the way to work?
Not really. Well, there's a gym near Cheam Station, but
I would my one piece of advice would find a gym and a PT that is commutable, like as in either at home or at the office. Yeah. But make it as fucking easy as possible. Yeah. Like, we've got a gym there, so if you look down that window behind us now.
Oh no, I've seen it.
Yeah, downstairs there's a gym, PT in there. We see him Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning. Yeah. I fucking hate going.
Well, I've hired a health coach, so many people know Michelle Flynn, ex-recruiter, etc. So she's she's helping me with sort of more. I think for me, I play. So you mentioned that sort of work. So I'm married, got a 2-year-old son. Those are people that can see me probably won't believe, but I still play a high standard tennis. So I've just joined the ITF Seniors Over 40s Tour.
Wow.
So I'm playing in the Scottish Open in January.
Really?
So I've got to get fitter for that because my partner was...
what is your forte? You've got a strong serve?
Hard hitter, yeah.
Yeah, with the height, your height is, I imagine your serve's powerful.
It's very powerful,
I'll get the fuck out of the way of that.
Yeah, its movement's never been my thing. It's power player. So play a lot of tennis. So I do actually exercise. I'm a keen golfer. Yeah. Decent handicap at 9, not too bad, although it was a bit better.
Yeah.
So, but it's trying to fit it in these days. I'm trying to actually get away from entertaining clients in drinking environments and stuff and get them on the golf course. Yeah. So, you can do that. So yeah, I'll try and play tennis and golf every week.
How do you find the balance of having a small child and trying to be the best dad and spend time and put him to bed and baths and all that? I mean, last night you said to me, look, I'm just putting the kid to bed and we'll speak after.
Yeah.
So you're doing it, but how do you balance that?
With difficulty, if I'm being honest. Me and my wife had a pretty serious chat about a month ago. One of the reasons I've given up drinking is because I haven't got time for hangovers. Being out, I'm not with them. So I realised that it's been a very stressful time going through sort of the situation at work around MBOs, etc. And JJ's in at a really impressionable age at 2, and Kelly at work's away as well. So my wife's away this week. She does weddings and she's at St Andrews up in Scotland. So I really, my mother-in-law, thank God, comes and helps out. But I'm trying to get home a bit earlier. So if I entertain on a weekend, I'll take customers to Arsenal or rugby or whatever. Then I'll say, right, I'll leave the office at 4, get back for half 5, spend an hour with him twice a week, and the other day, etc. And obviously not have a hangover. So I think that means I'll get a lot more time with him. But it has been really hard. I'd say she's my long-suffering wife, but I've only been married for 3 years, so she's just my suffering wife at the moment. But I feel now 2020 is the year where I feel that we will work hard. There's been a lot of unnecessary stress when you go through transformation of a business, when you go through any sort of leadership changes in the business. It's really, really stressful, very emotional, etc. So we're glad to be sort of at the other side of that now, looking forwards, got a plan of action. So for me, and I think a lot of recruitment business owners, would say this, that I think in order to be really successful, Elliot's, okay, sorry to keep mentioning Elliot, but the guy's done amazingly well. I heard he's given up drinking 5 years ago. I didn't even know that. The Elliot I knew, wow, that's if he can do it, maybe I can do it. So I think really looking for health, family time, and like you say, really getting on the work. But I think you can become someone that is consumed by work, and I think I've seen that in my previous boss, where it was 24/7. You get emails any time of the day or night, 7 days a week, and not switch off.
I think the fact is you've got that reason outside of work, and you've really got you got to remember why you're doing it. And Tony Kokozu was on the podcast. She's actually coaching me now personally.
Is she?
Or she's if you listen to the episode, if you've not listened to the episode, go back and listen to it in season 1. For me, I'm going to say it was my favourite episode to record. I fucking loved it, to the point where after it I was like, I need your help. Because we opened up to a level I'd not expected. Like I talked about all sorts of shit about my potential marriage, and she talked about stuff, and we both ended the podcast going, did we just say all that? But afterwards anyway, she's been helping me, and I'd say I know she helps recruitment owners, so if anyone reach out to her directly, like she's the best. But what she's getting me to remember all the time is just, why am I doing it? So I can get so fucking consumed in work and miss out on my wife and what we can create. But actually, she's the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing this to create a family and a lifestyle and a future for my family. I'm obviously doing it for the industry, but for me personally, like helping my parents and my wife and her family is my driver. So then you've got to remember that. And I imagine having a little boy must be like, it must 10 times your motivation. It
is. And I never thought, I was an old dad. So I was 39 when he was born. Kelly and I didn't think necessarily to have kids. We met when she was 35. So, at 35 and you haven't. So, he's an amazing little man. But now that he's 2 as well, he's so impressionable. It was tough for me as well when he was a baby. I felt like, didn't sort of connect, it was almost unreal for me. But now it's very much real. And you're right. I think, to be completely honest, there's 2 things. I do. I hope my wife believes when I say this. I do want to do it for them. I want us to give us that lifestyle, that security, etc. But it's no good if you're going to kill that off in the process.
No, exactly.
But also, as well, what's really passionate for me is we're in recruitment, right? We're trying to help people's careers. That goes for me internally as well. So I think that we have created something here that is unique. Yeah, everyone will say, oh, probably get your cynics. But when you look at the complete products, the complete methodology, the culture, how we work, I don't know another business that does exactly what we do. And I think I look at our team, I see how bought in they are to what we do. But I want them to be happy. I want them to have fun. I want them to progress their careers. What I really want to do is to create a business that's profitable enough, create a share scheme so that the leadership team can run that business, and that eventually James and I can either step back or exit, and then those guys get the opportunity. And I think to see the team happy, progressing their careers. I've brought people into this business that have gone to senior positions in the company. It's so rewarding. Like, I found it fascinating and so rewarding to see these guys develop. The Ben Charlton that I brought in, that's the MD of Charlton Howard now. I think he's done an amazing job, and I think it was great that I brought him in. He was sort of a bit lost in his recruitment career. He didn't really have much technology, and the business technology people training it was like moth to a flame. It's amazing. So for me, there's two things. I want to enjoy my family life and do what my purpose is them, but I also do think that James and I are particularly keen to make sure that our team are happy and happy.
You got it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's agencies. I could have been miserable, but on commission, you're earning good money. I think it needs to be more than that these days.
100%.
So they're my two.
Well, Simon, that's time up, I'm afraid, mate.
Fantastic.
I could carry on chatting all night, but
you know me.
I reckon anyone who's listening on the commute has definitely either got off the train or is about to get off the train.
Yeah.
But look, thanks so much. Thanks for being honest.
Cool.
Thanks for giving your time. And are you open for anyone to reach out, ask some questions?
Absolutely, of
if
course.
Recruiters want to talk about Talent Point, you don't have any problem with that?
No. I'm not one of those.
No.
I'm not a recruiter that hates recruiters.
No, but what I mean is you'll take people to come and interview, and but also if anyone's starting a recruitment company already in that,
absolutely,
they'll chat to you. All right, wicked. So, guys, I'll tag you in the post. Thanks so much. Cool. And that's it for another episode. Hoping you enjoyed this show as much as the previous episodes. We have just about hit the 5,000 listeners a month mark. So I just want to say thanks to everyone. You really do. The messages I'm getting every day, I obviously reply to them all and I read them all, and it keeps me going. I enjoy this more than anything else. So keep them coming, and please do share your comments, your opinions on LinkedIn. I've seen about 3 posts today. JJ, who's in the background, he's always in the background. You shared one with me today. It was a young guy, wasn't it? He was not even a recruiter. He was a sales guy. Tagged me just shared mine and Lord Gordon's episode, and I just that's wicked. There's a guy in America who's listening to my podcast, and he's not even a recruiter yet. He wants to get into the industry. I love that stuff. So please do share. Let's bring this industry closer. Let's support each other and grow. If you're on the Apple Podcast Store as well, please do give us your ratings so we can get the listeners up on that show. Next week, I will be back with another episode of the RAG podcast with another unique story of growth. See you then.